Hi, Peter Summer. I'm with Afro-American Newspaper in Baltimore.
Oh, well, nice to meet you.
So one of the stories we're doing is BMW doing a tech school for skill sets, and motorcycles is in BMW especially is a sign of upward mobility.
Yes, it often is.
I mean, you have all the CEOs, you have decision makers who ride bikes, even more than those who drive car. Anybody can drive a car.
Right.
So, I mean, how important, like this, what you just did today, I mean, how important is that?
Well, if you think about just the training itself, the challenge with motorcycling and mostly the culture within the U.S. is that often getting riders to go beyond the basic training is really challenging. So when you're talking about going out and doing road riding, they do their MSF course or whatever their beginner course is, they get their license, they're like, yeah, I took the class. The next level of that is road racing. Luckily, adventure riding, and the BMWs and the other brands get into adventure riding, the market for that are generally 55 years old, plus or minus a decade. So we're talking 45 to 65 years old. These are riders who understand the value of learning from others. They often have a little extra income. They're willing or able to invest. They're able to take that time and invest that time. And so I think it's really necessary for these brands to do that. And it's a growing market. It's a booming market, which is good. I've seen more and more guys in their 30s, some younger riders coming in, which is great for the industry, because the industry in a whole, we're losing more riders than we're gaining. And so that's really nice.
Why is that?
There's a lot of speculation in that within the industry. Whether it's just people are less outdoor focused. There has been questions in the past. Motorcycles have gotten very expensive to buy into, so younger people necessarily may not have the resources to buy into that. But we have seen a change. A lot of the BMW, Honda are now starting to come in with more affordable bikes at lower ends, and I think that may be drawing in younger populations, which is a benefit to the industry. But that's also nice when we do this formal training, when there's dealerships like Bob's BMW who will invest money into doing training seminars like this, or in support of other training that'll happen. I'm virtually positive that Bob's will probably be showing up when I'm doing training out here in Virginia. I'm guessing they're going to go, hey, how can we be involved? Because they understand that helps their customers. It's customer loyalty. It keeps their customers safe, and I think the more we have youth or younger riders, and I say youth often in their 30s, coming into it, if you have older riders who are also there that can mentor them, that can influence them, then that helps bring that all the way across. And that's really the goal here, is to change culture of riding. And
especially this cross-country, you were talking about riding through Africa.
Yes.
That's something that,
Well, and doing the international stuff, when I travel the world and I travel in places like Africa, I'm always amazed how few times they've seen Americans. I've been called into offices going, we want to see the American. We want to see them. And we see Germans, we see the English, we see other people, even South America. Once you get past Central America, I saw travelers from other countries, not from the U.S. And so again, hopefully this is an industry that will help us broaden our understanding of the world. It'll make us more culturally aware. It'll bring an idea to where we stand financially within the world, and a greater appreciation. To me, if you want to become appreciative of your own nation, what you have, the opportunities you have here, if you want to travel through Africa, if you want to travel through Central America and meet people and understand why they're fleeing and trying to cross the borders, why their dreams are to come to the U.S. And I'm here and I hear people talking horrible things. Of course the world can be better. We can always improve. But they just don't understand how good we have it. And if we just changed our focus from the negatives, going, let's make the better, that we really do have a place. I haven't found any place else in the world I want to move to. I love places. I love traveling. I have places I want to go back to. But this is home. This is where I want to live. And I know why people want to come here.
Yeah, and also BMW Motorrad is closer to their Rolls-Royce aircraft engine business, which is bigger, more important than their car business in a sense. In the higher end, Yeah,
and motorcycles don't make much money.
But
it's a small industry.
No, but it's not making the money, it's the connections. People who travel like you, or CEOs, I mean, even though Rogers, are the big CEOs. They create transformational change, like the guys here who are more involved with getting procurement contracts with the Department of Defense and the biggest economy than the guy who just drives his BMW car.
Well, there is and to your question, the direction you're going, I do think that people who choose to ride motorcycles, specifically in BMW, Ducati, these other high-end motorcycles like this, there's a personality type that's drawn to this type of sport, to this type of a motorcycle.
Even the city person doesn't want to stay in traffic.
No.
All right.
And I wish we had a more motorcycle-friendly country where we had more opportunities for lane splitting, lane sharing, these sort of things.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you.
No, absolutely.
All right.
I got 3 native kids on the motorcycle with me. They're not wearing anything, and I've got no hat on. And they're like, "Oh my God, that's terrible, that's horrible, that's horrific." Guys, we all have gauged risk when we go out. We get on the motorcycle, we've already made the decision to accept the risk. The level of risk we take is all individual. That's your choice. Just don't be ignorant. Be educated. You're going to make a stupid choice? Just know you're making a stupid choice. We're good with that, right? We've already made one. You're here today. All right. So that's when you think of foot pegs as far as that goes. Brake levers. Make sure you guys can operate that with your boots. We usually kind of ride behind it. Also keep in mind the riding style is different. A lot of times on those big boots, you're not going to be using your toes. You walk around in these, they feel like moon boots. They're really, really odd to walk around in. You're not going to move your toe like you would on the street boot. You have to change the technique. Make sure the bike is set up that way. Make sure that it has adjustability to do that. If you have exorbitant large feet, then you may end up with some of the aftermarket stuff to increase the reach to the front of the shifter and things like that. So things to keep in mind there. Come on over here. Yeah. You volunteer. Jump up here. So when he's standing up here, this is another consideration. We're talking about riding gear. Obviously, ventilation is a big deal. Having ventilation on the outside. Think about where the flow is going to come into that. The other nice thing, like the pants he's wearing, do you need the knobs or not? Are you going to be in a situation where you may need to paddle? Also, when we look at tire sizes, we're looking at width. Now, typically speaking, the narrower the tire, the more off-road friendly it's going to be. Wider tires exist primarily to help extend the life of the tire. So a lot of us, one of the myths is, hey, I want a bigger tire because I want more tire on the ground because I have more traction. That's actually not true. It's about pounds per square inch. Because I have 400 pounds on that much area, and I have that much tire on the ground, I have 400 pounds on that much area. So if I'm trying to push down through mud to get solid ground, if I'm trying to get down through rain to the bottom, that narrower tire has more weight, it can push down and put more pressure to the ground.
The equivalent of running those back of the truck and stuff to make it heavier.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah, so in the winter, if snow or ice, you put extra sandbags in the back of your pickup truck, same idea. So those of you with their high performance physiques, that's an advantage for you. You'll also notice those that are riding, and adventure guys are typical about really working on building those high performance physique, which is where you build a little extra traction and you work on building center mass. It's like so the motorcycles, they want all the weight in here in the middle. They don't want it spread out all over the place, right? And of course, if it's up here, it's top heavy. Everybody try to pick up something like a 1290 or an 850, and discover they're a lot harder than picking up one of these, because this has better center mass. So those of you with high performance adventure bodies, that's not necessarily a disadvantage. So getting back to the tires, so when you're looking at what are you going to do, are you going to road tour? Those bigger tires, the reason they go wider, the bigger, wider tires, have to do with big horsepower and heavy loads. Because if I have 400 pounds in a tire only that much, it's going to burn through it really fast. And then I have to make the rubber really thick. If it's that much area, now there's more rubber spread over more surface area, and I can make it thinner. I can spread that rubber out. So from a touring perspective, travel, that bigger tire makes a lot of sense. Same thing is true when you put a lot of horsepower to the ground, where the sport bikes have so much. So wider tires do have a place, and they do have some advantages. But when it comes to transitioning on the road, not your advantage. You have to go farther to get from one point to the lean point. They're more resistant. off-road, those smaller wheels don't track out of the ruts as much. They lock in and they stay in place. The wider tires float. So if you're thinking about a bike and going, hey, that's what's beautiful about the GS, it's kind of an everything bike. You know, I ride a GS because it's pretty good at most things. It's not fantastic. There's always something better at each individual thing. That's what makes it such a wonderful bike. Same reason why there's tires that I have preferences for. So ones that are just sort of in the middle. So if you really want dirt, something like the 850. If you're going to kind of do gravel roads or East Coast stuff, then the 19s and the wider tires would work for you. So that's something to keep in mind there. Ground clearance. Guys would pay a lot of time on ground clearance, but the truth is, it's very seldom a problem for what we do. Even if you take one of these bikes and you buy a lower GS and a low seat, it's really not that big a deal unless you're going to go someplace like Lockhart Basin. And that's a pretty extreme. And unless you're an extreme rider, you're not going to be riding there. Then put a better skid plate on. And there are techniques to increase that ground clearance. Everybody knows. So here's a quick question for you. When you think about ground clearance, one of the techniques is I need to make sure the suspension is as tall as possible when I cross over something. When I add throttle, what direction does the suspension go on the front, up or down? Perfect. So when I add the throttle, what direction does the rear suspension go, up or down? What is it? Up. What? Anti-squat geometry, guys. Turns out these guys that built these motorcycles are smarter than all of us. Anybody that's ridden an old 1980s, did I? Oh, perfect. Oh, really? Well, that just sucks. All right, that's fine. Okay, no, that's okay. Don't worry about it. What's it say? Oh, okay. So here's what happens. You have anti-squat geometry. The idea is that when you roll on, they don't want the back end to squat down. They want to hold steady or to have a slight rise. Anybody ever ridden an old 1980s XS 1100 or an old shaft drive when they first came out? You remember shaft jack? Had the throttle, the whole thing was just in the middle of the corner. Well, we don't want to do that, but that shows what it is. So look at that drive system, and also your swing point and the axle point. There's a balance between that because the argument the other side has there's very few places where I can't ride even on a 9010. So a lot of these bikes, when they come from the dealership, they come with a 9010 or a little more street-friendly tire. It's kind of typical. The first thing everybody does is go, I need to have knobbies. And that's actually not the case. I get the same question when people want to come out and train with me. Hey, do I need to get knobbies for my bike? And the answer is no, you don't. Now, there are advantages. It will give you a little bit of extra room. If you're making errors or making mistakes, they do give you a little bit extra to push it, a little more traction. The better your skills get, the more you understand the limitations. Where those 90-10 tires come up short are going to be things like grass, anything wet, anything where you need to paddle. So if you get into deep sand, if you're doing a West Coast PDR in sand, the problem is not the size, the problem is you have no surface area. So when you look at the knobs on these, in a dirt bike world, the way you know if the tire is good or bad isn't the depth of the knob, it's the condition. So when they look like a gumdrop, when they're all rounded, that means there's no edge to grab it. Right? You want them square. A lot of times what they do is they use the cut or hot knife the top of the knobs, or they flip the tires so that the rounded edge is now a sharp edge, and it would help them extend the life of that tire. This is where when I play and I do a lot of wheel spin and I skid the back tire, that's all fun, but it's really bad technique. Turns out really good technique is terrible video. And so, and that's one of the problems with making things look good or not using, because you just